Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who's excited to talk about geese or swans. You see, I had a poll on my channel and I said which of the bands that are named after large semi-aquatic aggressive birds should I review first, Geese or Swans. They both had albums that came out in the last couple weeks. Now Swans won with about 80% of the votes. Total landslide. That being said, I don't actually think they won that poll, because I only got like one comment saying why I should review Swans. By contrast, I got like 20 comments about why I should review Geese, why it's the album of the year, why I would have something to say about it, why based on my musical taste it would be so interesting. So I really like that way to start off, with this sort of huge amount of enthusiasm for a group which did not receive even nearly as many votes. And certainly, I think everybody was right. I think everybody was right. They're both great albums, obviously, and they're both great birds. I like Geese and Swans. They're not aggressive. They're just doing what nature tells them to do. But that's my strong pro-goose statement on the channel. That's why you're here. You don't just watch me because I do these videos unedited. You do them because I have strong takes on birds. But really, the feeling that this album made me feel is jealousy. Because, my son's going off to college. I have a baby and a son going off to college. And I've been thinking about when I went off to college. And maybe you don't know this. When I graduated high school, I took a year off. I took a year off because back then, 1995, 1996, I was positive that my band was going to make it. Now, back then, there was no internet. Not really. So, in order to make it, you had to make demo tapes and give them to clubs and hope that random music crickets would see you. It was a desperate, terrible thing. And we didn't do anything right. So our band didn't go anywhere. So when I was learning about this band, and I learned that they did exactly what I wanted to do. They are literally living the dream that I had in high school. I played with my band all the time. They were my best friends. We had this great connection. We took a year off. And these guys, Geese, according to the little bios I read, one of them got into Berkeley. Berkeley School of Music, not Berkeley in California. And just as an old Xer that I am, seeing young kids make this decision actually makes me happy. Because in general, I think since the 2008 economic crash, parents have just been so insistent that kids just need to get on a railroad track to a job and a career. And certainly if you're creative, Berkeley School of Music provides that. So the idea that a kid these days would decide to just try to be a rock star in a rock band is heartening. But then the fact that they succeeded just makes me feel all this good jealousy. You know what I mean? Good jealousy, the difference between good jealousy and bad jealousy? Sorry, the lock on my door just keeps making noise, so you're just going to have to deal with that sound. More, you're going to have to deal with the panic that comes over my head when I hear that sound. It's like a good jealousy. It's like I'm just happy that people are doing it. I wish it was me, although realistically, I don't think I would have been ready for fame when I was 20. I'm barely capable of handling niche internet micro fame of this channel, much less the kind of fame they have. But it's interesting because as I've been getting ready to review this album, and I'm going to talk about it, I love the album, I love the music, singing, drums, guitar, everything. Everything on this album is totally on point. But also, there's a lot to unpack with how the band is perceived and how I perceive the band. One of the top articles that pops up is a New York Times article from a couple years ago. It says, New York has a new band of buzzy post-punk teens. And I believe I quote Dennis Nedry when I say, look, see? Nobody cares. Hey, New York Times, nobody cares about buzzy post-punk bands in New York. Not even in New York City. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about rock and roll. Nobody cares. We're not just sitting around waiting. In England they do. Okay, fine. In England they're constantly waiting for the next great Blur, Oasis, or whatever, and a band pops up and then the media crushes them into a little box and then they turn into something okay or bad. Right? But it's interesting, this sort of presumption that we're still living in a world where we are waiting for the next Strokes. The next Strokes could come and could be ignored and could absolutely go nowhere. But we are still left with the fact that there is a kind of global post-punk gap between, I would say, England and the rest of the world. So it is nice to see young kids making post-punk music, making rock music that is this good, that is this vibrant, and that is this sort of maddeningly young. Now, when I see that people are famously young, I get worried, and my hope is that they're going to sort of have, hopefully, some protection of their privilege, because that's the other thing about when bands come from New York. You might not know this about me. If I see a band comes from Brooklyn, I am like 1/10 as likely to review it. Okay? I'll explain why in a second. But we're not living, when we talk about bands from New York, we're not like, that term, bands from New York, doesn't mean anything anymore. They're bands from New York, okay? New York, post-Giuliani, post extreme wealth gap that has grown in the boroughs of Manhattan, Staten Island, Bronx, Queens, whatever, right? So, this band is made up of that, of a bunch of high school friends who all went to a couple of different private schools where their tuition was $50,000 to $60,000 a year. And I'm not putting any shame on them. I personally think this is great. In my opinion, if every kid who went to a private school became musicians and artists, we'd have a better place. If they use their privilege to figure out how to do something creative and interesting and try to do something to help the world as opposed to becoming iBankers and hedge fund managers, then the world would be a better place. But still, we have the problem of the sort of semiotic confusion of the word New York, because New York, just the word itself is so evocative. That what we actually have here, and this has been true at least since the Strokes, is that most New York bands, I don't mean New York hip-hop acts or whatever, but most New York rock bands, they are people practicing an aesthetic that their very existence helped to wipe out. If you take the Strokes as a perfect example, they were seen as the second coming of the New York Dolls and the rough and rowdy 70s and 80s, and oh, wait a minute, they all met at a prep school. They're all a bunch of prep school kids who are cosplaying as the New York Dolls, which is not to say they're not great. I love the Strokes. They're awesome. But it's this weird reality where New York is now no longer a place to come and make it. New York is a place where people who made it send their kids. And hopefully their kids can use that privilege and leverage and connections to make it somewhere else. I have the same reaction whenever people tell me, whenever I see that someone came from New York University Film School. Just to me, I don't see that as like, oh, they made some great things. Like, okay, they had connections. They went to an $80,000 a year school in New York City, and they managed to make it. But in reality, I promise I'm going to talk about the music, but hey, hopefully you don't come here I don't give scores or grades or anything like that. I just give you my thoughts. And this band of 22-year-olds is really getting me to think a lot about the nature of sort of wealth, music, New York, and all these things. The reality is probably it's always been this way. Because even if we go back to the king of the New Yorkers, I'm talking about Lou Reed. Lou Reed of Velvet Underground, the most gritty, junky New York guy that you think of, he was a kid from Long Island who went to Syracuse MFing University, okay? So even then, maybe it's always been this way. But really, in a better world, and I talk about this all the time with rock and roll, in a better world, Geese are a much bigger band. Just that buzzy article, you should be sick of hearing about Geese. The idea of this buzzy band in New York, if it were better, we would be annoyed. This kind of lame, half-assed effort to build buzz would actually have worked. Because it's great music that's very catchy, that's written by engaging and interesting people with a funny and engaging story. It's weird that we don't have more space in popular culture to make people like this multimillionaires based exclusively on their record sales. But it's sort of a knock-on effect, because I think in a better world, Geese are as big as the Strokes, and in a better world, the Strokes are as big as Aerosmith, But it's just that I'm not here to litigate the the death of rock and roll, because rock and roll is not dead, but rock and roll appreciation is sick. I guess I'd put it that way. I'll get to some more reasons of that soon. I have to say, I'm shocked this isn't on a major label. This is another thing I'm talking about. Like, in a better world, they'd be on RCA, they'd be on Universal, but instead they're on Partisan, which is like sneakily becoming like the best label in the world. They've got Idols, they've got Fontaine DC, they've got Geese, and then they just got PJ Harvey? Man. And they're named like a very cool communist term that most conservative dunderheads don't even know is a communist term because they don't have any sense of history. They just see the word communism and they think bad. They don't understand that partisans were these like absolute badasses who 100% were responsible for eliminating Hitler in many, many places and Nazis. Anyways, so Partisan, just keep an eye out on Partisan. They might be, I don't know, the new Rough Trade or whatever. Now, when it comes to the style, I keep calling them post-punk, but there's an interesting element where, and I'm tempted to do the music cricket thing and just be like, British post-punk is more technical and more focused on virtuosity because it is more developed in the conservatories and the classically trained schools. I don't know if that's true. That's the kind of jerk-off thing a music critic would say. But still, it seems a little bit true that Geese is not focused on blowing you away with time changes, with any kind of progness at all. It's much more straightforward. But what I like is that even though they're not pushing the virtuosity, it's not like they're hacks at the instruments. They're just being mostly tasteful, but it's not clear if they're tasteful because they're being tasteful or if because they literally can't do all of the, like I'm going to see Black Midi in concert tomorrow, Could Geese play a Black Midi song? I don't know the answer. And let me go one step further. I'm not sure that the answer matters, right? Because the ability to play a Black Midi song is neither good nor bad. The ability to be Black Midi is frickin' awesome. You know what I'm saying? But like Neil Young couldn't play a Black Midi song, right? There's that famous thing that Thelonious Monk could never win the Thelonious Monk Award, right? He just doesn't have the talent. Anyways, so what I like though is that they're still post-punk because they're rock and roll that is not dead, which is basically post-punk is a catch-all term at this point for rock and roll that doesn't just make you want to gouge your eyes out. There have been a couple rock and roll albums that have come out over the last month that a lot of people have wanted me to review, and I don't look down on them, and I don't think that they are bad, but I don't like them. And that's why I'm not reviewing them. You're thinking, does he mean that one? Yeah, I mean that one. I'm sorry to say. That's just how I feel. We all have our own preferences. And some people's preferences don't like the Foo Fighters. I said it out loud. I just don't like them. I respect the hell out of them. I just don't like their music. I apologize in specific, not to you, but to Steve. My best friend, one of my best friends, huge Foo Fighters fan. And he's a Patreon, but I can't go for it. So anyways, any kind of like rock and roll that's not sort of like that is post-punk. And often it jumps between styles and moves all around. But what I like about this album is that they're very good at having different styles without feeling like they're trying to style hop. And even though the very first song sounds derivative at points, most of the album, it's familiar but never quite derivative. And more important, it doesn't sound like they're up in their heads thinking, how do we not be derivative? So they can have the stylistic variation, sort of maximal to very sort of minimal, kind of groove-based, less mathematical. And let's just be honest here. I'm a drummer by formation. I never want to give a lead singer credit, okay? I hate giving lead singers credit. But Cameron Winter is just, God damn it, does he have it? Being a good lead singer is tough. And it's the biggest issue, I think, with post-punk is that most of the lead singers who are lead singers are ambiguous about the role of lead singer, which is great for listeners. But when it comes to making the leap to more mainstream success, you're not going to do it. You're not going to be a success. You're not going to be a mainstream rock band unless you have a lead singer who is a lead singer. And I'm including you, Kurt, and I'm including you, Tom York. Like, you're super lead singer even if you pretend like you're not, right? And Cameron Winter is it. Now, he also, just fun fact, Just in case he ever gets to be like super famous, I would just like to mention that the first thing when you type in the name Cameron Winter that shows up is this. Cameron Winter is a villain in the Godzilla cartoon show. So, hey, Partisan Records, can you do some more like promo to make sure the first thing that pops up when you type in the lead singer of one of your band's names is not a villain from the Godzilla cartoon? But he's just, I'm going to get more specific, but he has so much charisma and swagger and talent and range, sort of all at the same time. This is going to sound goofy, but like, he's like the Timothée Chalamet of music. Timothée Chalamet also from a sort of fairly privileged New York City upbringing, precociously talented. When you see Timothée Chalamet act and you see how young he is, and you're just like, damn it, that kind of like, wow, I guess this is what happens when human beings are given all the opportunities to succeed. Sometimes they take that opportunity to succeed. But he does just so much right. Cameron Winter does so much right. He takes it past the line. So it's a thing that most of these new lead singers don't do. They don't take you past the line. The line that makes you go, oh, come on, man. I'm not trying to sound like Biden. Come on, man. The word is baby. The way he says in the first track, I'm just trying to find a way to my life, baby. If you can listen to that baby and forgive it and not immediately stop your car in the middle of the highway and burn your car because the car was the car where you heard him say the word baby. That's the break point. But I promise if you fight through that, you're going to eventually forgive it. And he does that thing that lead singers do where he's so out there and so outrageously lead singery that eventually you forgive it. And so, he doesn't really enunciate a lot. So I'm sitting there thinking, well, his lyrics are probably bad. But God damn it, his lyrics are not. They're really good. They're really good because they're in and out of sincerity and irony. He rhymes a lot, but sometimes he doesn't rhyme. I used to find that my best lyrics were written when I wasn't trying to rhyme. He's able to go between bravado and tenderness. Mick Jagger is probably the best frontman that there's ever been. And the reason why is, this is a good test for a lead singer. Can you imagine them singing Street Fighting Man and Wild Horses? Okay? Because that's the thing about Mick Jagger. He sang Wild Horses. That pouty lip guy with the millions of girlfriends and the fashion and everything, and just the cartoonish guy also sang Wild Horses. How are human beings capable of that range of just complete douchebaggery and the ability to sing Wild Horses? And very few lead singers have that ability, and Connor Winter has it. Lyrically, now that I've studied a little bit more, he does have a charming immaturity because he'll just sort of like have an idea and just write a song about that idea, which is how I wrote lyrics in high school as well. I'll just do this. But let me tell you why this is actually really good. Because most lead singers, most young people get insecure that they haven't had life experience. What the hell do you have to say if you come straight out of high school and then you're in a rock band? What do you possibly have to say that's interesting? What life experiences have you had other than traveling around as a emerging rock band? Like nothing. So what ends up happening is most lead singers just start singing about vices, sex, and drugs. And they get confused and they think, oh, well, the Stones did it and Aerosmith did it and Strokes did it. So, hey, sex and drugs are personality traits. And it's true. It's a shortcut. And I think about how great in the rap world, Baby Keem is, one of the best upcoming rappers. But, like, he's not a criminal and he hasn't had much life experience. So he just raps about sex all the time because that's like a thing that he feels is edgy and interesting. But it sucks because I just wish he had something else to rap about to show off his great talent. So I really enjoy in this that there is no just, singing about beer or drugs or doing lines in the bathroom or anything like that, I really think it's way more interesting, even if it is immature. Because over time, of course, there'll be life experiences. And then every once in a while, he'll just throw out these lyrics where you're like, oh, I feel you, but I can't feel your pain. Oh, that's a great lyric. That is objectively as good as a lyric can be. I feel you, but I can't feel your pain, which is a song which allegedly, according to himself, he wrote about a friend who is very depressed. It's a beautiful lyric. There you go. Now, based on the title and the album cover is like a male model in a cowboy hat in the middle of like the desert with like a mushroom cloud. So I was afraid it was going to be like that last Oliver Tree album, which I didn't review because I didn't think it was very good. I'm always positive. I didn't think it was very good. So I thought it was going to be like that. And I was like, is this going to be like a country album or something, kind of faux country? And it's not at all. I don't really know why they chose this as their theming, except it's very post-apocalyptic. That's one of the themes that they write about, but it's not really there. And we need to give some credit to James Ford, who produces, I guess, all of Arctic Monkeys stuff. Man, Arctic Monkeys fans are pissed at me for only knowing one of their albums. I like that album, though. Maybe you should tell me if I should review the album AM. You've never told me that in a comment. But James Ford does an amazing job on this album. I think because it's tough, having young kids, even if they've already recorded an album, even if they're seasoned musicians, they're still 20-year-olds, so they are very well corralled here. I read some interesting articles. One from Guitar World, with the two guitarists of the band, Gus and Foster are their names. Strong names. My principal's first name was Foster. And the way the guitarist Gus describes themselves is interesting. Good guitar interplay and driving rhythm instrumentals and some nice abstract melodies on top. So they're very insistent that they have different styles, and it's clear the guitarists do have different styles. I can't tell which one's which, obviously. But James Ford manages to really put those together and have this very stylistically rich and varied album. Now, there's a term that was used in the guitar rock album, in the Guitar World thing, and I've seen in a couple articles, and that is the term dad rock. Now, first of all, just so you know, anytime says anything is dad something, it's a holdover from patriarchy, okay? Dad jokes, that's not actually, I get it, because, they're bad puns and dads say them, but that's all within the context of patriarchy making it more acceptable for men to speak out and to make jokes, and more expected that women are in a more passive role in life. So I don't make dad jokes, I make teacher jokes, which are the same kinds of jokes. So anyways, if you want to join me, and I'm not virtue signaling, these are my virtues. I'm telling you my virtues. So I'm not signaling, I'm telling you my virtues. So anyways, dad rock is kind of a similar thing, but I get kind of annoyed, It turns out this shirt is a dad shirt. I thought this was like a cool, dope shirt. My brother shows up. He's like, nice North American dad shirt. I'm like, what? No, this is a cool young guy shirt. Damn it. I don't like the term dad rock because it's just too limiting. It's, just because a 45-year-old person could theoretically listen to an album and like it doesn't inherently mean it's dead. And I guess I think of Greta Van Fleet, a band that I don't even know if I like. I can't listen to them because of the way they're presented and because of the middle-aged friends of mine that like them for the reason that they are acceptable young people. So that's my biggest fear, is that Geese becomes roped into that world, which I don't think they will. So it's 25 minutes in. I haven't talked about any of the music yet, but have you liked some of my ideas? If you did, stick around. This is what this channel is about. It's part of what it's about. I do have a mug. I don't do sponsorships. I don't think VPNs are necessary. So I'm sorry. I hate to tell you. I think you're wasting your money. Okay? And any YouTuber who tells you that the service they're trying to sell you is going to help environmental causes is lying. Okay? So, hey, I don't do that stuff to you. But I do tell you to smash the like button, subscribe, and on any of my videos at any time, if you leave the letters AVAA, awesome video as always, I will give you a little heart. Doesn't matter which video, doesn't matter when. I will give you a heart. One of those, like I read your thing, okay? So feel free to just tag one of those on. I mean, you might make a long comment and see if you can get me. See if I see it or not. All right, so let's get to a stamp. An example song off the album. This is the song which I heard it and I was like, oh my God, this is it. Oh, this is so good. The song's called Crusades. It's does a lot of the things that Velvet Underground helped usher in, a kind of simplistic pulsing guitar line, very simple, but the charisma of the singer, the skill of the band just pulls it through. These lyrics, everybody is born bleeding, but I'm in my armor, I'm a man. And this is where I'm like, wait, is this a song about like the Crusades? Is it called the Crusades and it's actually about the Crusades? And then I found this Consequences of Sound article where Cameron Winter goes through every single song. And he says, I wrote the lyrics after reading about some of the horrific stuff that happened in the Crusades. And paired it with this super simple, straight instrumental I had lying around. I'm entertained by how lyrics paint a really dark, depraved scene over this happy little ditty. So it all kind of comes together. You know, that's this kind of simple immaturity. Just, oh, I found out about the Crusades. I should write a song about it. But also, these lyrics are good and they're well made and they're sung in a cool way. I raise my fingers up through the ceiling and you'll see my God and you'll be born again. Religious intolerance and violence, sure, but it's also just a great rock song. The second part does this great sort of back and forth, like basically the chorus, but the lyrics aren't repeated. Like this guitar does this cool trick where it's kind of going back and forth that interlocks with the singing. What is a lie to the infinite ages? Really, another more Mick Jagger points for how incomprehensible his lyrics are if you don't read them. Because this is what I heard and I listened to it. What is a lie to the infinite stages? What is a lie to the infinite ages? Saying how we justify dishonesty and cruelty through our faith. A whole reference to the siege of Belgrade. I'm going to Belgrade this summer, so that's pretty cool. And there's like a gorgeous little violin bit in the second chorus, like different lyrics. Men die, but the devil is ageless. The strings fall apart. It's just so well produced. In a better world, this is a song which is everywhere. Remember that time in like the early 2000s when like Franz Ferdinand and the Strokes were like pop hits? Can we just do another one of those? Can we just have like another summer like that? Where everyone's like, remember when we all cared about that band Geese? I don't know. I'm going to go through the rest of the album here, about the same pace. Track opens up with 2122, and if this song is not featured on the Oppenheimer soundtrack, I'm walking out. It's one of the apocalyptic songs here, super maximal. It's actually okay, I've been praising the band, I've been praising John Ford, I've been praising everything. I'm going to say they made a mistake. This song shouldn't be on the album. I like it, it's a good song. It should either be further in the album or it shouldn't be on there at all. Because this is just totally misleading. This is like a song that starts and stops like 1,000 times. It's super maximal. It sounds like they've been listening to King Gizzard. I don't really know. It sounds like they're ripping off Led Zeppelin, Black Dog in the beginning. It just sounds like they're just doing all this stuff. And it's good, but it comes the closest to sounding like an American band trying to sound like a British post-punk band. Which is not what we want. It is not. This is what he says. It was so Zeppelin-y from the outset that we ended up blemishing it with a bunch of noise to make ourselves feel less like a cover band. You see, I like his honesty, but that's not how you want to start off the album. He says it's half dad rock, son of a bitch. Now he's using the term dad rock. When did we all accept this term? Half harsh, cacophonous noise, and that's been endlessly funny to us. It makes it a lot of fun to perform. So I believe that. And it's a very fun, good song that I think is out of place on this album. All the sort of themes, he talks a lot about like different gods of destruction, and the meteor of peace is how he's describing the end of the world. Great little bendy guitar stuff, and this is where he says, just looking for a place in my life, baby. Where if you can hear that baby and make it through, you're going to really enjoy this album. Almost like a Blues Brother-y instrumental. And then I was listening to the song with my niece. Like my whole family with my niece. And I was asking them what they thought about it. And they were saying how kind of busy it was and how it seemed like it kept starting. And she was like, yeah, there's that one part with the banjo and I would have liked to heard more. And I was like, yeah, that's that's what it is to be a music critic. You just say, this happened, and then you decide if it's good or not. So if I were one kind of music critic, I could say, hey, the banjo only happened once, and that's a complete mistake, wasted opportunity. Or I could say, a brilliant little instance of something being teased but not brought out, leaving the audience wanting more of this interesting sound in this fantastic modular production. I'll leave it up to you. I'm just saying there's a little bit of banjo here. Next song is called 3D Country, and this is where I think the album should have started, not only just because it's the album title, but it's just totally different style, simple, kind of straightforward, starts off with these drums, rhythmically interesting. The drummer's name is Max Bassin, I guess Basin, but there's no way I'm not going to pronounce it in French. Like very strokesy singing, but then it even reminded me of Warren Zevon a bit. But that could just be because he referred to a Thompson gun. Apparently, it's like a story about like a cowboy who does acid and fries his brain forever. I don't know. Lyrically, this one's more of a vibe. But the thing about his singing, it's not just that he does like the one thing. He does like so many things. Like the way he sings the words, "Skye High Mother." Like I can't do it. You might not know this about me. I'm not a lead singer. But the way he sings the word "Skye High Mother" comes out of nowhere. And speaking of coming out of nowhere, the backup singers are singing like gospel style, like full on Rolling Stones, "Gimme Shelter," rain, that style, which is not in fashion. I guess St. Vincent brought it a little bit back, but St. Vincent's in probably a different lane. Oh, hey though. That would be a good show. St. Vincent and Geese. Like very different energies, very different crowds. Anyways. Great instrumental bit here. There's a lot of great instrumental bits throughout the album because bands that start in high school are better than every other band. That doesn't mean that all good bands started in high school. Many bands don't. But like, if a band can become good, and if they start in high school, the interaction that they have, I pray that Cameron Winter doesn't get lead singered and think that he's better than the band, or think that they're whatever the sort of stereotypes are, because they have figured out a way to allow him to be the face of this thing, but the whole thing is what makes it good. And there's all these instrumental bits in this just real sense of friends and people who've known each other, who like actually formed as human beings together and then formed as musicians together. And that's, going to my favorite example of Radiohead. That's why Radiohead is so good, because that's how they formed. And then they got, it's great. And there's an actual guitar solo on this album. Hey! You know how it's not a dad rock album? Me as Mr. Dad, Mr. Dude in his 40s wearing a shirt which apparently makes me look like a dad. And I did get a grill, but I didn't get a grill. My wife bought the grill, and my brother did the grilling. I still have yet to grill anything in my backyard. I don't care for grilling, but yeah, I'm not making a good case here. A dad rock guy wants more guitar solos. A little harp ends it, much like the banjo in the first song. It's like, oh, a harp. Next song is called Cowboy Nudes. Look that up on Google. Find some interesting photos. Guitar lines very clean and crisp here. I really enjoy that. That they're able to just play guitar that's so naked, much like the title there. More sort of according to something I read, he said it's about like a post-apocalyptic scene where a cowboy falls in love with tumbleweed. Again, these lyrics are a little bit immature, a little bit goofy, but I prefer them 1,000 times to some sort of faux, I'm so dark and dirty, and I've got the needle tracks in my arms, and I'm sleeping with the model. No, it's great, man. Just keep singing about bombs and cowboys and crusades, because it's great. Life will catch up with you, and then you'll have some more stuff to sing about. Jesus Christ, that's patronizing. That is so patronizing. So this has more of the gospel singer. The front half of this album feels very Rolling Stonesy in a very good way, like using the gospel singers in the way they did, and then also doing percussion tricks. In particular, Sticky Fingers, one of my favorite albums. Another Andy Warhol cover. But a song like Can't You Hear Me Knockin', you know, where they have these like long extended jams with percussion. They do a lot of that on the first half of this album, especially this song. Just the drums and the percussion. And, you know, there's like a little bit there. It's like New York City, underwater. And it's kind of ironic. It's going a little bit far in the irony area, but that's fine. Next song is called I See Myself. More of that kind of Sticky Fingers-ish percussion. I've been hit by the bus of love. Great lyric. I've been hit by the bus of love is a great lyric. Is it stupid? Yeah. Is it a great lyric? It's also. This has like, okay, so has more of that gospel singer backup. The chorus, I see myself in you. If you don't like this song, fuck you. I don't swear very much on this channel. You weren't expecting that. But what precisely were you hoping for in music? Okay? I know, edgelords. There could be some more time signature changes. Or the guy could have been, whatever. But just this chorus, it's so catchy and so well produced. You know? Man, it's so good. Excuse me. If you don't like the song, that's fine. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have insulted you. You're still mad about the Foo Fighters thing, which I don't blame you. On paper, I love the Foo Fighters. A drummer who became a star. I just hate all their music. I tried. And apparently, you know, this is hopefully the way that the band is going. Maybe keep some of the Crusade stuff. But also this. So I found another quote from him that's on Lyric Genius where he says it was his first love song and about seeing your humanity reflected back in someone else is one of the most pure kinds of connections that exist. So he appears to be maybe moving towards a more mature songwriting. And yeah, just a great smooth instrumental bit at the end. I just love it. Undoers, the next song. This is maybe the worst track. No, it's definitely the worst track on the album. It's not a bad track, but it's the worst track on the album. It's led by the bass, kind of jazz, sort of a jazz odyssey feeling in the beginning. More percussion, more great drums by Bassin, great instrumental bit. The problem with the song is that it's all kind of like hodgepodge. It's all kind of like jammed together, in which I ended up reading about it, and he described this song as like the gumbo where all the weirder ideas we couldn't fit into shorter, snappier songs ended up. And that's how it feels. It's like screaming at the end and these great little off-kilter rhythm jams, and it's all great, especially the drummer is just working super hard and he's doing great. I like all the individual things, but cosmic gumbos are not what you want to hear. Like, this would have been awesome for like the extended version, you know, as like a bonus track. But still, it's good. It's very enjoyable. It's very listenable. But next track is Crusades, which I've already discussed. This sort of begins the back half of the album, leads into Gravity Blues, which has like the 70s shuffle, very high on the hi-hat, which is very low. Is very low in the mix. So the hi-hat is very prominent, but it's in the way it's played, but not in the way it's mixed. I'm not Fantano. I don't listen. I don't understand. When he says that an album is poorly mixed, I have to go back and listen to it and go, oh, okay. So I don't really care about mixes in general, but in a song like this, I can tell because as someone who hears what the drummer's doing on the hi-hat, I want to just crank it up. But I don't. You know, he didn't. There's restraint here, which is great. This is my favorite description from Cameron Winter describing the song. It's our attempt of combining Maxwell Silverhammer and Oh Darling into one song. We failed, but in an interesting way. They didn't fail. This is once that little key was given to me, because I was almost thinking like, are they trying to do like a cool Billy Joel song? By the way, Billy Joel fans hate me. It's okay. I don't hate them. I do hate Billy Joel, but I don't hate the fans, you know? I don't even hate him as a human being. I just hate a lot of his music. But still, like, this is the key. And as a stylistic exercise, Maxwell Silverhammer and Oh Darling, two goofy as hell songs off of Abbey Road, trying to mix them together, that is actually how the song sounds. It's great. Very nice little guitar bit at one point, these kind of hammered on licks. Like, I wonder which of the guys, Gus or Foster, is the guy who's doing all these kind of hammered on guitar licks, which is really nice. And I just don't understand the singer. He's just so damn good. And he's not good in like the Adele way, you know. He doesn't have like an 8-octave voice or Jeff Buckley, and you're just like, oh my god, he could win America's Got Talent. Man, this guy wouldn't make it past the first round of America's Got Talent, but he's got lead singer, you know. Maybe past for I've never actually watched that show. And this has that lyric, I can't feel you, but I can feel your pain, along with that other song, I see myself in you. We're starting to see more mature songwriting, kind of a noodly jam at the end that floats away while they sing the word floating away. Next track is called Mysterious Love. This is one of these huge stylistic changes that is actually fairly seamless just by how the album is produced. Voice is like super loud over this funky bass and kind of like bending guitar lines, and I tried to describe what his voice does just in the first lines. Like it starts off in sort of medium high clear voice, and then a nasally bit blends into a slightly hoarse yell that then becomes basically spoken and then becomes screaming. And he does all those things in the span of 30 seconds. And in case I haven't mentioned it, I really appreciate this lead singer. Then the next bit is this great, sounds like sort of semi-hollow guitars. Like the rest of the guitars sound super like electric. I don't know, I'm not a guitar guy. But more kind of hammered on guitar lines in the bridge. Just really beautiful. Again, it's taste, not virtuosity. I don't know. You know, I was trying to figure out what does this sound remind me of. The singer guy said it's about 90s rock cliches mixed together. A little, maybe ease off on the self-effacing stuff in interviews. I know it's hard that people care about you, but says a guy who talks about every single flaw constantly. And who's recording this video further back than usual because I got some kind of weird situation on the left side of my face. I got 2 zits on this side of my nose. And if I'm as close as I usually am, you can see them. Who am I to say about self-effacing? But some people are alone forever is the line that's repeated over and over again. It's very nice. It doesn't sound like a cliche to me. It's just a very nice, catchy line. It sort of reminded me of Peter Gabriel for some reason, but I don't know why. I'm not even a Peter Gabriel fan. Next song is called Domoto, and I looked this up, and I thought it was a Japanese pop singer, but it turns out it's not. That was just a random word that he typed in, and he kept it. Whenever I type in words, it's like CJK, CLJ, or DFD, FD, FD, FD. So I guess that's what Demoto is. And this was on the second listen to the album. This is where I realized how much I loved it. Almost like a musical vibe, but then the singing's in a more emotional register. He's a little bit less swaggery, a little bit more vulnerable. I've been alone since my eyes have been open. Young and crying, eyes like prey. I see you in my head. I count my mistakes. I know where you're going, baby. You won't make it there. Great ending. Then we get to Tomorrow's Crusades. The drum line starts, this crispy little guitar line, a little fiddle bit here, a little bit of the country there, but it's not really there. And then he does his vocals to the best effect, just like acrobatic. They go up high, they get matched at times by the instruments. And then this song really has the bassist on display. Dom Digesu? I might have mistyped that. Digesu is what it says on my notes. So, is that like Romanian? Seems Romanian. I don't know. But the bassist is really on display here, which is nice because he does the thing where he's basically soloing the whole way through, but you don't notice unless you're just listening to the bass player, and then you're like, damn, that's some good bass playing. And just the, where would I ever be without you? He sings it almost as well as that. And it's just great. It's a beautifully catchy, much like I See Myself in You, there's this vulnerability there that just makes you angry that someone can be singing goofy-ass songs about the Crusades and about cowboys blowing up on acid, but then can also have this song where you feel what he's singing so carefully. Just great strings doing interesting stuff. The fiddle ends up matching the voice, and apparently his whole idea on this was just to have an abstract song about some kind of biblical calamity, which makes sense because when you listen to the song and you don't pick up the lyrics except for that beautiful chorus, and then you read them, and it's like, breaking the storm with her mammoth claws. Yeah. But then you, where would I ever be without you? Interesting ending with smoke filling your eyes, smoke filling your life. Up and down sloppy horns to end, and then we get to the final track, Saint Elmo. You got to love young people. Okay, the same guy who's like making fun of himself and being so self-effacing referred to this song in the following way. I think it serves as a really nice Pet Soundsy moment of relief at the end of the album. So the same guy who's all self-effacing about not being able to do this casually refers to his music as Pet Soundsy, which, let's give them their credit. I think they did it. I mean, it's not as good as Pet Sounds, but that's okay. Very few things are. But very great, almost like Nilsson-y, Beach Boys-y, Muppets-y, fun time song. And I really like the lyrics because one of my favorite things about just anything is just anger at your parents' generation. If you've been watching my videos lately, I work through this a lot. And I strongly encourage young people to be angry at my generation. It's not all just boomers. It's just when you're young and you have power, or when you have vitality, and you see the people who have power, you get mad at the fact that they wasted their vitality on not trying to change injustices. So St. Elmo's Fire is this movie all about these kids who come back from college and they're all like living their lives, and it's all so nostalgic. But then we have these lyrics, which are true punk lyrics. Oh, why don't you go home and rot, you and the kids you grew up with? What good 100,000 eyes in the middle of the darkness? I mean, that's not how he sings it, but that's how it could be. Why don't you go home and rot with the kids you grew up with? And then my favorite lyrics on the whole album, some songs have a sad end, some sad stories have no fucking point. That's great. That's true. That's the truth of all life. Some of our lives are sad, and some of those sad lives are pointless. Thanks, Geese. Gorgeously baroque and kind of light chorus. The singing gets kind of bratty. A nice little drum outro with a Casio sound of tss, tuck, tuck, tss, and then ends with just a ooh. I would have liked a guitar solo here. So, I don't know. Maybe one more guitar solo on the album. So there's my review of Geese. Geese. I guess that's a duck. What do geese even say? Like, bleh, right? Yeah. The other day I was walking along the canal, the Erie Canal. I live in Western New York. And there were all these geese. And there's one, I was not even close to it. It was like, I was like, Chief, I'm not going to try to eat your goslings. It's my wife you got to look out for. She knows how to cook fowl. All right, so these are my Patreons. I'm probably going to buy this album. I really enjoy it. My family enjoys it. It's just a great one. I'm sorry. I got so many Patreons now that I can barely fit them on a page. Zip, zop, zippity zay. Can't fit them all in my Escalade. And there you go. So, thank you to my Patreons for supporting the channel. And thank you for leaving a VAA. Until next time, here's the camera.